Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this subcommittee meeting of the Licensing Committee. I welcome you all, and I'm Councillor John Andrews, and I'm Vice Chairman of the Licensing Committee, and I represent Sherborne Ward. We will now elect a chair for the meeting. Do I have a proposal?
Can I propose John Andrews as chair?
Oh, there. And I would second Councillor Andrews as well.
Thank you very much. So I will now ask my fellow subcommittee members to introduce themselves. On my right, I have...
I'm Councillor Susan Cockin. I represent...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, we're just getting used to microphones, sorry. I'm Councillor Susan Cockin. I represent Portland Ward. I'm a town councillor for Portland and also a Dorset councillor and sit on the licensing committee.
Councillor Kate Weller, Dorset councillor and Weymouth town councillor.
Thank you very much. I would now like to ask the council officers to introduce themselves within the committee. I'll first of all start with the clerk.
Hello, yeah, I'm John Miles. I work for the Democratic Services team. I'll be the clerk for this meeting.
Thank you very much, John. Now I'll ask the legal representative to introduce herself.
Good morning, I'm Lara Autry. I'm here to advise the subcommittee if they need any legal advice.
Thank you, Lara. And the report author of the licensing team to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Catherine Miller. I'm Senior Licensing Officer and I'm the report author.
Thank you very much, Catherine. We have other officers here today. Democratic Services, we have...
Hello, I'm Elaine Tibble. I'm from Democratic Services as well.
And also we have some people observing today who are council officers and they need to learn the trade. So I'll hand over.
Yes, I'm Hannah Massey from Legal Services, shadowing Lara today.
Legal Services, again, shadowing, sorry, Rhianne Smith, Legal Services, shadowing Lara today.
Thank you very much. Right, I'll now ask the parties and their representatives in attendance to introduce themselves, starting with the applicant and the representatives.
I am Sophia Harrington. I'm the applicant. This is my husband and what would be my manager, Craig Frost, Jason Harrington.
Thank you very much. And now the parties and the representatives or objectors or representations.
I'm Robert Rodway, local resident.
Julia Herbert, local resident.
That's it, thank you. We're all getting used to these microphones and everything. These microphones are linked to the camera so they can come around you. Yeah, got to let the public know. So we don't have any representatives from all the representative authorities here today. Is that right, Catherine?
That's correct, Chairman, yes.
Right. I'd like to go over a couple of points. This is a public meeting and is being live streamed on YouTube. This is a structured meeting to ensure fairness to all parties, and the chair and me will give everybody their chance to speak and then to sum up at the end in reverse order. You've all started to get used to your microphones, so I won't go through that. I now need to go through some more formalities on the agenda. So first of all, do we have any apologies? Nope.
There are no apologies.
Thank you, John. Do we have any urgent business? No?
There is no urgent business.
Thank you. Right, I'm now going to ask the licensing team leader Yep, sorry. Any declarations of interest from councillors?
No, Chair.
So now the case before us today is the club in Wimborne, and I'm now going to ask the licensing team leader to outline the details of the application, including details of any withdrawn representations. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Chairman. This hearing is to consider a new premises licence application for the Club Wimborne, 23A Eastbrook Road, Crownmead, Wimborne. The application is for a first-floor entertainment venue which has been operated by the same family for many years. The premises previously had a licence called the Vibe Lounge. This was from November 2005, and according to our records, it lapsed in July 2019. The applicant, so the applicant has applied for this on this licence, live and recorded music indoors, Monday to Sunday, 2300 to 0300. Late night refreshment, Monday to Sunday, 2300 to 0300 hours. And the supply of alcohol on the premises, 12 noon to 0300, Monday to Sunday. Live and recorded music do not require authorisation when playing on licensed premises that open for the sale of alcohol for audiences up to 500 between the hours of 8 to 2300, hence why their entertainment starts at 2300. Dorset Police and Environmental Health have requested additional conditions which the applicant has agreed to, and these can be found at Appendix 3. There are a total of 13 representations against the application, and these were received from the members of the public, and these are at Appendix 5. And there were 4 letters in support of the application which were also received, and these can be found at Appendix 6. I'd like to remind members that the options available to them are to grant the licence subject to such conditions as the authority considers appropriate for the promotion of the licence and objectives and the mandatory conditions, to exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activities which the application relates, to refuse to specify a person in the licence as a designated premises supervisor, or to reject the application. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I will now ask any councillor or either in the subcommittee if they have any questions for the licensing.
Yes, Chair. Sorry. Catherine, I would like to ask, since there was quite a number of objections, is it possible to tell us how many complaints were between the period of when the licence was held previously for noise and everything else? Sorry.
I haven't got any actual details of any complaints. I did speak to the police, and they said that there have been issues of ASB, low-level ASB disorder, and intoxicated customers on dispersal. They're not sure whether there's a kebab shop around the corner, apparently, which closes at 5 o'clock, or that's what their opening hours for, so that may have people to linger. I also spoke to the licensing officer that was for East Dorset, and she said there were problems. It's mainly out on the street when people disperse at the time, but as Environmental Health have only asked for a few conditions on their licence, then because it's been closed for a while, they haven't had any complaints, hence why their records wouldn't have gone back that far. Okay.
Just one more question at this time. Is it possible, I noticed that there's a pub opposite, the Rising Sun, or very nearby. Do we know what their licensing hours are?
Yep. Their hours of opening are Monday to Thursday, 7 in the morning till midnight, and Friday to Saturday, 7 in the morning till 1 a.m. That's their opening hours. They may not open those hours, but that's what's on their licence.
Thank you very much. Kate, if you...
Thank you. On the same vein, actually, Catherine, you may not have this information, so I apologise. Were there any historic complaints on environmental, noise and so on in the previous club that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. Again, the Environmental Health have requested 3 conditions. One was to do with a noise limiter. The other was containment of people when they come out for smoking, and not to have no more than 15 people outside. So, yeah, they haven't come up with any more. So I don't think they've had any at the time, and I'm not aware of any.
Right, thank you very much. So I'll now ask the premises applicant, have you got any questions for licensing?
Yeah, just to clarify, there was 6 supporting documents, not 4, to our application. I just wanted to clarify that because that's obviously another 2 more than what you emailed me over. No, I haven't got any questions. That's all.
Thank you very much. Catherine, can you clarify that?
Sorry, there were 7 actually. It's an error. Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought I saw more than that in the papers that we were given. So thank you very much for that. The other people that are representing today, have you got any questions you'd like to ask licensing?
Where is the smoking area going to be? Yeah, they're going to be.
It's, if you look on, there is appendix, is it page 57? It's one that environmental health included, and it's printed on the front. 55. Yes, there we go. If you can see.
So that's outside the front?
Yes.
Okay. And the noise limiter?
Yes, it will be. I'm not an expert, as I'm not an environmental health officer.
So
but
it implies that when the window's open, the music stops?
No, they plug into it directly when they're playing music, and it's pitched at a certain level, and if the music hits that level, it will cut out.
Okay, so it's not interlocked with the windows, so the windows can be opened at any time whilst the club is open?
Yeah, the windows can be open, but like I say, the noise limiter is directly into the live or recorded music that's being played in the premises.
Please excuse me. Regarding just the process, do you want comments from us, or is this simply questions to you at this stage? In which case, I have no questions. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just questions at the moment to the licensing team. Every party will have their opportunity to speak, like I say, and sum up later. So you will be given that opportunity. Right, I will now ask. So we've had the objections. Any questions from anybody else before we move on? No. So I will next ask the applicant to represent their case.
Thank you. So, yeah, I am applying for a premises licence for the Club Wimborne, previously known as the Vibe Lounge. It has been in my family since 2005. It was my father's. My dad actually passed away in 2017. We closed the doors a couple of months after he passed away, because we had no involvement in it, and it was solely run by my dad's manager. So myself and my sister then opened it beginning of June 2016 to the end of July 2019. So for 7 weeks, in that time period, we had no complaints. It was ran, as I would want it to be ran, and be proud to put my name against it. So, yeah, that's brief history. But, I am from Wimborne myself. I've lived in Wimborne all my life. I run a successful hairdressing business. So I'm not a novel at running businesses. I'm quite upset that my local town council has gone again against my application. I intend to run it well. I intend to run it to the best of my ability. We've put policies in place to ensure that the dispersal at the end of the night is done correctly and efficiently. We will employ our bar staff for an extra half an hour to ensure that the immediate vicinity is cleared. I've contacted local taxi companies, and we've got one of 3 taxi ranks in Wimborne, literally on our doorstep. So, you know, we're in quite a good position to be able to disperse customers quickly. There's a search policy in place now, so every persons will be searched for drugs and weapons, because I know that that has come up in some of the objections. The police, they asked for these conditions to be placed within the application, to which we have, so they've rejected their objection. The same with environmental health. The smoking area will be limited to 15 people at any given time, and there'll be no re-entry 45 minutes before closure, so that should stop some of the nuisance outside. Have you got anything to add, Craig?
Yeah, so we've done everything we can in our power to make sure this club is ran to its maximum efficiency. We have made sure that we have matched or surpassed the level of door supervisor required for the club. Like Sophie said, we have a tax rank directly outside. We will endorse a policy where we shall escort customers to taxis should they wish. And we believe we have met or be able to challenge back any objection that so far that appeals put towards us in this process.
Thank you very much. I will now ask the councillors, any questions for the applicant?
Yes. Could I just ask, how many people will the club hold in total? Oh, sorry.
There's no actual capacity at the moment. There's just like a rough guidance of 3 to 350, but on busy weekends like the Folk Festival, we try and limit it to 250 ourselves. But yeah, we don't have any, what's the word? It's not been kind of documented what our capacity is.
And I don't think it has been on any previous lease agreement or licensing agreement either, so I don't think that's ever come to a head, so we will take your steer on that.
All right.
I think Catherine might say something. I'm just concerned about fire risk, but I think Catherine might come up with that. I don't know. Miss Harrington, you've only run a nightclub for 7 weeks, I believe. Mr. Foster, have you got experience of running a nightclub before?
No, many years. So no direct experience, no, in running a nightclub per se. I've run businesses for many years in many, many sectors, and I'm adept at dealing with the public. Plus, we also have ancillary services in place, like registered door staff. And going back to your fire concern, I think for Catherine, I think the fire, do we have no issues from the fire services, do we, regarding fire exit, entry, and etc.?
No, there was no concerns from fire. I just want to point out on the licence, the capacity is not stated. However, what happens is when they do the fire risk assessment, the fire risk assessment will bring up what their capacity would be, and that applies to all premises.
I have, only ran this nightclub for 7 weeks, as you say. However, I have had marginal involvement with it being in my family, so I'm not a novice.
Thanks very much. A couple of things. Looking at the objections, which are all historic, obviously, can you just outline very briefly, you mentioned a couple of things, can you outline how you're going to tackle those objections that were there previously. So can you tell us how you're going to actually physically deal with that disbursement? Because obviously it appears to be outside that the problems are happening when you're closing. If you can just say why you're going to be better?
So we've got a dispersal policy in place now. Again, people won't be allowed re-entry 45 minutes before closure, which will stop the loitering. And if they can't get in, then they're going to go home. And then when the venue does shut, the door staff will be in high visibility uniform, and they will disperse the immediate vicinity for an extra 30 minutes after we close. Encouraging taxis. I've spoke to local taxi companies, namely Camford Taxis, which is a local Wimborne firm. They're going to ensure that they spread the word around so that the taxi rank continues to be full. Obviously helping the dispersal on our part as well.
A direct phone line inside the club to work into a local taxi company, so we can call taxis from the venue to outside, so we can monitor that. And I think as the meeting continues, we'll see that some of the applicants for refusal to entry are about current businesses being run in Wimborne rather than ours. I'm sure we'll touch on that as the meeting progresses regarding antisocial behaviour.
I wonder whether you can, you're going to be having a mixture of live music and recorded music. Can you give me a rough idea of how, will there be live bands every weekend or specific weekends? Or, what's the mix?
So no, we don't intend on having live bands every night. It will be mainly recorded music from a DJ. The live bands would be the likes of the Folk Festival, or if there's a call for it on New Year's Eve or such. But no, we won't be having like heavy drums or anything like that weekly.
You're probably looking at a 90 to 10% split, I would say, in terms of ratio between live to recorded.
And just finally, you're obviously an experienced businesswoman, so and your father was running the club before, so you're fairly sure that there is a need for a nightclub in Wimborne. Otherwise, you wouldn't be reopening it, would you? Do you know how many nightclubs there are in Wimborne? Is this the only one? Are there a number?
This is the only nightclub. All the other venues are public houses or restaurants.
Thank you very much. Well, my fellow councillors have asked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my questions. I'm just asking about the hours. Now, you're proposing to open 7 days a week till 3 a.m. in the morning. Is there a need for that in Wimborne? A lovely market town that it is.
So, yeah, we're asking for those hours. Predominantly, our opening hours would be mainly Friday and Saturday evenings. However, if somebody would like to rent the venue for a private function, or if, say, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve falls on a Tuesday, we don't want to be limited to Fridays and Saturdays. And Sundays, say, for bank holiday sake. Our operational hours will probably be just Friday and Saturday evenings, unless there is, call for it as a private venue, or Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve falls on a midweek.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are you off? So just to add to that, I mean, obviously there are some unprecedented events this year, notably the Queen's Jubilee, there is the World Cup, but in the main, like Sophie said, it'll be a Friday and Saturday establishment. And we're very mindful of the local community. We won't have one on Monday night for the sheer sake of it. We're very mindful. It is predominantly a weekend-based industry and a continuation from people going out on a Friday and Saturday night. So Thursdays and Sundays will be in relationship to events that are above and beyond the norm. Does that make sense? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Actually, the World Cup's in Qatar, so they're a bit ahead of us. So you'll be out open in the afternoon for that, and that'll cover your normal hours. But thanks. Yeah. Anyway, good explanation. Thank you.
About the smoking area, it's outside at the front of the building, and you're saying there's up to 15 people. Can you just clarify what they won't be allowed to take their glasses out?
There will be no drinks past a designated point at the top of the stairs, and there will be a table there for them to leave their drinks on there. So no, there will be no drinking outside.
And obviously there'll be an appointed door staff on the door to ensure that policy as well. Yeah, so when they leave the club to have a smoke, there will be a door supervisor there. To make sure they do. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Kate Weller wants to ask another question.
You're mentioning about a member of staff making sure that drinks aren't coming out. This is almost a silly question, but will somebody be supervising those drinks left on the table there so that there's no possibility of spiking whilst you're off having a cigarette?
Yeah, so that is a door where a door supervisor is normally placed anyway. But I am going to be getting, they're called sip drinks or something. It's like a plastic cap that goes over and they can pierce it with their straw because it's rife at the moment with spiking. So I've already kind of covered that.
Yeah, thanks for that, because I think that has been a real problem, especially in some of the areas in Dorset at the moment. So we're really keen on making sure that is not happening. So I'll now ask the licensing team if they have any questions.
No questions from me, thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no responsible parties here, but any person who has made representation, would you like to ask something of the applicant?
So my only concern is that the noise is not limited to the building. I mean, it's been that we know for many, many years, we've seen the vibe. It closed for a certain time and it reopened. But the noise comes out of the building. And invariably, I mean, I'm surprised that the window's open. You've got 350 people potentially inside that club, all dancing all night long to this very boom, boom, boom music. And then, of course, to get all the air in, the window's open. So that means that all the noise comes out even more. So a noise limiter should really be attached to the windows. So if the window's open, the music stops because there should be air conditioning enough into that building to make it comfortable for the clients to be in there without the windows being opened.
The air conditioning wouldn't work with the windows open, and to my knowledge, not when I've run it, have the windows been opened. They are quadruple glazed, so you've almost got one lot of window, then a void, and then another lot of window. And to my knowledge, excuse my vagueness, I don't actually know if the window's open. I think the outside glazing is just glazing.
Furthermore, on that point, just with Catherine there, is the noise limiter, is it to be linked with the windows or just be linked to the actual amplification sound anyway? No. My question was to Catherine, obviously, regarding the noise limiter, is if it's built into the amplification system of the nightclub, is it a legal requirement that it's actually condensed into be having shut up when the window opens? Because that'd be a completely different system and not one that I'm aware of. I don't know how you could link an electrical system into a double glazed window that can be open or closed.
Yes, I'm not aware that noise limiters are linked to windows. Just bear in mind with the Live Music Act, you can only condition things from 11 o'clock at night anyway. So windows and doors would have to be shut from 11 p.m. But I think noise limiters are definitely for the music, that they plug it because they plug into those and it cuts off. But I've never heard of one, or even if you can have them on windows.
Thank you.
My husband has just confirmed that actually the windows don't open. They are just glazing.
Yeah, just a couple of points. Just a clarification, really. My understanding is you're requesting a 3 a.m. licence, therefore it's closing at 3:30. You discussed dispersal, that your door staff will remain half an hour after closing, so that's 4 a.m. in the morning. You are still anticipating people being around. I also didn't quite understand the smoking area aspect, that I understand that's 45 minutes. There's no re-entry 45 minutes before the end or before you close. So you've still potentially got 15 people outside at 2:45 in the morning. I don't know whether I've got that correct.
Yes, that is correct.
Did you have another point that you want to make?
Moment. No more questions. Thank you.
Am I able to speak? Mr. Rodway, in his objection, he's listed quite a few disturbances that he endured during what he said the early hours of the morning when the Vibe Lounge was open. I just want to clarify to everybody that all of these instances are from March 2018 to May 2018, and I closed the venue on the 5th of January 2018. So the disturbances were not directly from my business, and it's historic through all of the objections that I'm getting blamed for disturbances that actually are not directly from my venue.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that. So we've gone through that part. Responsible bodies are not here to speak. Now we'll move on to, excuse me. Any person that has made representations that want to lay down anything.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Committee. If I may, could I just provide a little bit of context to living in Wimborne and the late night issues? Obviously, the town's got a lot of pubs. 3 of them have got a 1 a.m. licence, and therefore they shut at 1:30. I live over the other side of town from the premises, and I live near to one of those other premises that shuts at 1:30. The reason that the closing time is such a concern for myself and many other residents is because it appears to be the worst of the nuisance and crime and disorder occurs at closing time. I'd already noted before this application went in a list of instances that we've had over the last 12 months, which I sent to licensing. The majority of those are actually just disturbance to sleep. It's the shouting, it's the general noise. But there is some aspects of criminality. I should point out that is not related to this premises. I simply give it as an example. So over the last 18 months, we've had a car damaged outside, which was about £500 worth of damage. We've had damage done to my neighbour's building, and we've had one of our windows smashed. So we're looking at about £3,000 in total of damage done. And all of those occurred within 5 minutes of the premises near me closing. So there is clearly, I think it is unreasonable to say there is not a correlation between closing time and nuisance and crime and disorder. I would also point out there's a very heavy focus in licence applications on CCTV. All of those incidents were picked up on CCTV, so they were not prevented by CCTV. It's just a fact. I think we're probably all quite aware of that. There's also, I think, a bit of an underreporting issue because all of those incidents are reported to the police. There are insurance numbers on all of them. But the police really are not that interested in where those individuals have just walked from or just left. So there's not really an association with a licensed premises, and yet there is an association with a licensed premises. If I can go back to 2018, my understanding, and if I'm incorrect, I do apologise now, but my understanding was actually the Vibe finally closed in June 2018. If I could just rattle through, and then obviously you can respond. At the time, we were getting, a lot of residents were getting a little bit frustrated with the nuisance we were getting, which is why we started just noting incidences, which is why I was able to be quite specific. We had got to the point of discussing with the licensing authority about the possibility of a license review. We were aware that was the only option, but then the Vibe closed, and that was that. The nuisance did reduce down. We were still getting it about 1:30, but nothing even close to 2 o'clock. And if I can actually just make one final point, when reading the objection letters, you got various themes which seem maybe at times almost a little bit comical. And one of those is there's a lot of reference to vomit. And this may seem a really minor point, but if I can give you just one example. Last year, September 3rd, Friday, Saturday night, it was actually into the Saturday night, so it was September the 4th, I was woken by a girl screaming, shouting in the street. When you live in a town centre, you gauge pretty quickly whether it's a serious noise. You know that teenagers shouting, other bit shouting, whether it's serious or not. Quickly opened the windows. You could see quite a few people around, so I thought, not really a problem. It was approaching sort of 1 o'clock and didn't think any more of it. Following morning, walk out my front door, and there's just a puddle of vomit, which has got to be cleared up. So because we had CCTV system installed on our building, I quickly checked the cameras. And a group had left the premises, I say just before 1 o'clock, followed by a lad and his girlfriend. And a few moments later, the lad was running back, I assumed to get into the premises for safety, and he was caught up by one of the other group, and he was punched to the ground. And whilst he was on the ground, he was punched another 4 times. The screaming the night before was actually the girlfriend asking or being frustrated that the door staff had not intervened a little bit sooner. And he was in the middle of the road at this point, and they just dragged him to the side, propped him against my building, and that's when he then threw up. So when you read in these objections things like public urination, vomit, they all might seem quite minor, but there is a lot more that we witness that is really unreported. 2 police cars attended that incident. I offered the police our cameras if they needed it, and we don't hear any more. And these are just, it's not every night, but when these incidents occur, we seem to have a system that doesn't link it to licensed premises, and yet these are within the immediate vicinity of licensed premises. So going back to 2018, a license review then, it would have been inconceivable that an extra hour would have been added onto the license at that point. If anything, the license would have been reduced back, really in line with the other 3 late opening premises in the town. So to then, be sitting here and having to argue why there maybe a 3 a.m. is not maybe the ideal time, it's hard to convey our experiences and what we see and understand why this is a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yes, there is a correlation between licensed premises and some bad behaviour. But unfortunately, that's not in specific with this one because the Vibe hasn't been open for some time. So we'll take those comments on board. But thank you very much for your comments. Would you like to come in?
Sorry to interrupt. Are we allowed to answer Robert before we go on to the lady? Okay, then we can. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry.
Okay. I was just going to say, Chairman, I think it might be better if questions are asked at this point and then you go to the next person who's made a rep. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Lara. I'll take that advice and you can ask questions. Okay.
Thank you. I will just clarify that the venue was closed on the 5th of January 2018. The company was then dissolved on the 26th of February 2018. So all of these disturbances that Mr. Robert Rodway has said categorically from the Vibe Lounge are false. I must quickly brief over the fact that Mr. Rodway has objected to Wetherspoons in 2011, Cotai in 2018, and the Butcher's Dog in 2018. All of his objections were based on the same grounds. So we are living in a town with public houses and venues for local residents to enjoy. I'm not a pub. If I was a pub, I would be looking to operate under pub hours, but I'm a nightclub, so I get the later segment of their night out. They come to me after they've had their time at the pub. They then come to the nightclub. So it wouldn't be fair to categorise my licensing the same as the other public houses within Wimborne. Also, back to your evidence that you collated, and you state that people were walking from my venue to where you live to get in their cars. I don't think they were getting in their cars drunk, causing disturbances, and then driving. So that's, and also you do live quite a long way from the club, so you can't categorically say that every single disturbance is, due to my nightclub. And the stories that you've just said and the points that you've made are historic, and again, not related to my nightclub.
Oh, yeah, just to add to that, and thank you, Robert, for your concerns. But, antisocial behaviour can happen at any time of the day. There is no correlation. It can be exacerbated by limited alcohol, but that's down to the person consuming the alcohol. All you can do as a venue, a license, to make sure you manage it to the best of your abilities. So going back to your comment about insufficient door staff, which you related, we have matched and surpassed the number of door staff required for this venue on this application. And then going back into Wimborne, and your question is this the only nightclub in Wimborne? Yes, it is. Now, licenses have been granted in Christchurch, where there are at least 2 nightclubs, and various other towns within the borough and the county. So I think it can be a little bit narrow-minded to think that Wimborne shouldn't be allowed to have a nightclub open for the benefit of its residents, to bring entertainment into the industry, into the community, but also employment too. And there is a general consensus within these rejection letters of antisocial behaviour being conducted currently, and we are not a current business. So that takes you back to what's being run now and what can they do to better the atmosphere and the leaving and the dispersal of their pubs and clubs, or pubs and other venues, as opposed to what we're sat here doing. I think it's only fair and right that we talk about the vibe / the club and not anybody else in between. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments from you want to comment?
Okay. I understand it's a new business. You've not done it before, but there is a history to that nightclub being run. And it has consistently, when it has been open, been a very bad problem for everyone who lives in the neighbourhood. It is noisy. When it closes, people scream, they run outside, there are fights. There's a classic problem of the mess, which no one clears up. So all the businesses in the area have to open their doors at 5 o'clock in the morning, clear all the mess off, and then start their business day. So that's the first thing. It is a magnet for all the people who've been drinking in the pubs till 1:30 in the morning or whatever time. So they will come, and don't say they've not, they'll be intoxicated. So then they come into your venue and they are served more alcohol when they are intoxicated. And then that leads to more. So they come out of the building, They are very noisy. They're young, okay, and they're having a time, but it's in the wrong place to have that sort of activity. Had you been in a different area, that would be fine, but you're in the centre of a small town. The way they run out, it disturbs right through the town. You can hear it going, the shouting, the screaming, going away at, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning? I'm not sure what your father's licence used to be, but it was certainly disturbing. You mentioned about the noise and that you've got the windows closed, and you say you've got a noise limiter. If you had that noise limiter, and it's the same noise limiter you were using, then I can tell you that's extremely disturbing. It did not keep the noise down. We frequently had to phone environmental health because we couldn't contact anyone in the nightclub to say, turn your noise down. So it didn't work. And it's the type of music, I mean, you're not playing, I don't know, Ed Sheeran. You're playing this disco booming, which is very, very strong music. So if you continue with that style of music, it pounds through the building and out into the street and into the residents' homes. And I can tell you that because we used to have to contact environmental health, who were going to come round and sit with me at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I had to stay up to 1 o'clock in the morning to sit with environmental health, to listen to the noise, to put a case forward. So it's an inconvenience to everyone in the area. You've dealt with the thing about the smoking area. I don't agree with that. It should be outside the club because that's going to be another mess for everyone to clean up the cigarette stubs because it's right on the main high street between two businesses. So that's another issue. 3 o'clock is totally unreasonable. It is not a good time to have a nightclub open into an area which is mixed commercial and residential. It is not that people should be expected every Friday and Saturday night to know that they're going to be kept awake after working all week till 3 o'clock in the morning and beyond while everyone leaves the vibe or the club. I don't think it's reasonable at all. If it was town planning and you were saying that you wanted to build a nightclub in the middle of Wimborne and you were going for planning to build a nightclub in the middle, I doubt it would get anywhere because everyone would object to it because they don't want it. It's a small town. Its nature is it's a square, small town. It's not a linear town like Christchurch or the other ones you might have mentioned. It's a different style. Mm-hmm.
Can I stop you there? It's the supposition that planning would not be granted. So I'd like you to withdraw that if you can, because this is not a planning meeting, this is a licensing meeting.
Okay. Okay, I withdraw the comment about planning. I do just state that it is, because of the locality and the way it's set up, it is just not appropriate to have that sort of venue in the middle of town. I don't believe you can control your clients once they leave the building. That's the issue. We don't have a big police presence anymore in the town. We don't have the police walking around. And once they leave your immediate premise, there's no control over what happens. I've seen them climb on top of buildings. I've seen them fight. I've seen them vomit. I've seen them trying to make love. You know, that's a bad thing, but, you know, that's another thing. So, you know, they do get up to everything in the immediacy of your house where you live. And I think I'm entitled to, where I live, to have that sort of respect and what do you say, an entitlement to peace and quiet. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's just not acceptable. Sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. So now I will ask, firstly, which I didn't do last time, councillors, any questions? No questions from councillors. Right, applicant.
You're making mistakes now. Thank you for your concerns, Julia. So all of your objections are based on the previous operating of the venue. I, like I've said, briefly opened it for 7 weeks in 2019, and to the best of my knowledge, there wasn't any antisocial behaviour during that period. I ensured that the immediate vicinity was dispersed and everybody went home. You mentioned that the only beneficiary from this application is to line the pockets of myself. That isn't grounds to reject a premises licence, I will say, A. B, it's not just going to benefit myself, although I have got 2 children and a family to feed. I will obviously supply jobs to bar staff, security staff, indirectly taxis, takeaways, the list goes on, you know? So that comment, I feel, was a little bit, vindictive. So again, the windows don't open. The noise limiter is directly plugged into the DJ's equipment and limited to a noise level that is deemed acceptable. No, we don't set that level. You know, that's just what the noise limiter itself does. I'll hand over to you briefly.
Hi, I just want to say, I think it was quite a crass comment to say that everybody enters or everybody entered the Vibe Lounge intoxicated. Unless there's categoric proof of that, I think it was quite a crass statement to make. Any well-run nightclub, not just ours in question, but any well-run nightclub across the country, you're employing door staff to make sure people enter the premises who are not intoxicated and are free from weapons and drugs. And you'll see that on our own dispersal policy of how we're going to not only control entry, but also exit. Yes. And then, this is a nightclub. This is a continuation from pub operating hours. By definition, it's not the same business. It's not the same sector. And I think then to object to the level of music being played, again, I think with respect to Whimsical, you're not going to a nightclub to play Ed Sheeran. You're going to predominantly dance, to dance music. We don't make the dance music. We choose the dance music based on what the customers wish to hear. So I think some of these comments now, we're kind of getting away of why we shouldn't have a license. I mean, it goes back, and with the smoking policy, we've banned smoking in public places, in pubs and clubs, many, many years ago. So we have an outdoor smoking facility. We've already proven it to be adequately manned by the outside door security, and also then 45 minutes you will not be allowed to re-enter before the club finishes. We'll also put the caps on the drinks to prevent spiking. That's all we can do, is work within the legalities that are set out for us to adhere to and or surpass, which are what we're here to prove today. So I think our own policies put in place are going to put in a well-run nightclub into a town that hasn't got one. And unless I can be proven otherwise, I cannot for the life of me understand why Wimborne should be refused one, where someone like Christchurch can have 2. Unless there's a categoric difference between the two, and the one in Christchurch on a straight road, residents live directly above it, whereas it's a ground floor premises. The Vibe operates obviously from the ground floor to the top. Sorry. Yes.
Can I just say this needs to come in your summing up rather than questions to these people, all right?
But just going back to that note there about why do we need a nightclub in Wimborne, it's been there for nearly 20 years. It's been there before some of these residents who've complained have ever come to Wimborne to live. So, it's not an overnight sensation. This has been within the community for over 2 decades. Thank you.
It also provides, it is, yeah. So your objections, you asked who this attracts. Well, everybody's welcome. Not just, we haven't got like an age limit. You've got to be between 18 and 25. Everybody is welcome into the venue. It provides, our local youngsters to stay local and not ship off to Bournemouth, where the crime is increasing in Bournemouth with weapons, etc. So with our search policy and our dispersal policy, all weapons and all drugs will be seized and held. I feel that we've implemented a lot of stuff that wasn't previous with all the historic objections.
And one more point on that. And you.
Is it? No, what I've been listening to is comments.
Thought that, sorry, I didn't catch your name. I thought that later would our chance to answer the comments from previously. So that's correct, isn't it?
It's your chance to ask questions. It's your chance to ask questions of the people who've made representations.
Okay, licensing. Any questions to the people who made representations?
No questions, but I could clarify a couple of points. There's no difference between a nightclub licence or a premises licence. It's all one licence. It's not distinguished. That would be a planning thing. But under the Licensing Act, it is a premises licence. It's just the hours and how they're run is slightly different, but there's no difference. And regarding a noise limiter, that will be fitted and set at a level to the satisfaction of the Environmental Health Service. That is actually the condition they've requested. And it'll be set by them, and it'll be set so that it cannot be tampered with, and it can only be changed with prior agreement to environmental health.
And I would suspect with the new licence and the new licensed premises, environmental health will be monitoring some licensed premises.
Yes, I would imagine so.
Thank you. That is providing the licence is granted, of course. I will now ask our legal representative, have I covered everybody?
At this point, Chair, I think you're at the summing up point. Yeah.
Sorry, I've got a question from a councillor.
Oh, it was a question to the applicant, sorry. Right, okay.
Right, thank you. I will now ask and give all parties the opportunity to sum up their case. And I will start with the last one and work backwards. So go to the people who've made representations.
Yes. I'm representing a group of people who have all had the issue and with the club. I'm not saying that it's going to be in the future, but it's indicative of what's going to happen. I mean, you cannot control what goes on outside once they leave your club. You can control the noise, you can control not selling alcohol to intoxicated people, you can control the smoking area, which is a public smoking area. It's not owned by anyone, it's a public pavement. But you cannot control them once they leave. And because that environment is existing in the middle of a town, such as Wimborne, which I said is commercial and a lot of residential and new residential properties being built in the close area as well, it just adds to the, not unsatisfactory, it adds to the problem of people living there. 3 o'clock in the morning is not reasonable. It is definitely not reasonable. I mean, the pubs at 1:30, you get everyone leaving the pubs at 1:30. Now they're all going at 1:30, going to the club, and then at 3:30, they're going to be leaving again. So you get a double whammy of all the noise going through the town and the behaviour problems and the sickness and all the other associated issues. So as much as I would wish you well with it, I just don't believe that it would be able or it should be appropriate to be cited where it is.
Thank you. Any other summing up?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just respond to a couple of comments, actually, if I may. Firstly, thank you for Googling me. I think that's the first time anyone's ever actually Googled me. I think I would actually just make one final point, that I'm not against a nightclub. I'm not against a pub. I'm not against anybody opening in town. In fact, every pub could open till 5 a.m. no problem at all. But no one pees in my doorway, no one pukes in my doorway, no one punches anybody in the street, and no one breaks my window. It's the nuisance associated with the premises that I'm objecting to, which is not the concept of a nightclub. It's not the concept of a pub, it's not the concept of a restaurant open once open to 2 a.m. It's simply, we have witnessed the nuisance, and it is hard to believe that won't be compounded by your premises. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the responsible authorities, which is none, and the premises licence holder presumed, and the applicant. So if they'd like to sum up, please.
I didn't realise that there would be such strength in the objections of the nightclub, seen as that it has been there for many, many years. But all the objections are, again, historic of me running this venue, and with the policies that I've put in place, the search policy, the dispersal policy, the level of staff and the amount of staff that I am going to have monitoring situations, I feel that I can run it well and hopefully not cause too much disturbance to you. Obviously, I have ran it for 7 weeks, and in that 7 weeks, there was nothing reported. And I know, because I was there every night of the week, that there was no problems outside. I'd just like to be given this opportunity to open it up again. Do you want to add?
Yes. I think I just want to close my end to say, I totally respect the issues that the residents may have, and we want to set this nightclub up and in no way, shape, or form alienate the local community who we wish to serve. But I do think we've got to take into context, antisocial behaviour can happen at any time of the day. That's why the police is a 24-hour-a-day service. We can only be responsible for so much and can only go so far. If we can ensure people leaving the premises safely, with door staff, there's taxes en route. What people choose to do thereafter, whether influenced by alcohol or not, cannot be directly accountable down to the club. We wish to offer the town an enjoyable place to go in continuation to the night out on what is predominantly a weekend-based industry. That's why nightclubs were set up. And let's not detract from the point it has been in the town for 20 years. So there's people who have gone there in the early 2000s whose children have gone there in 2015. It is part of the local heritage of Wimborne Town. Some of the people who objected when we've gone through the relevant letters have moved in after the club was opened. So due diligence, if you do not wish to be in a town that has an entertainment industry, perhaps we should look before we move into that town. Now, I totally respect that someone had been there before, right? But I do think it can be, with respect, a little bit narrow-minded to think that Wimborne shouldn't have one, where other towns and cities can. I don't quite get the distinction on why we're objecting to this one and we're not objecting somewhere else. We will ensure it's run correctly. We will bring employment into the town. We hope to bring enjoyment into the town. Like Sophie has already mentioned, we will be employing bar staff. There is door staff. There is the nightclubs. We have got bins in place. There will be council tax charges, etc., etc., etc. We're in an unprecedented time now where we could enter into a recession, and people are looking for ways to increase their earnings by opening a new business, which was, by definition, an old business into the town, can only be considered to be a good thing if well run, which is what we aim to do. I think that's my end of my summary. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. License, do you want to say something?
The only thing I would say is just for everybody to bear in mind that if a premises is failing to uphold any of its licensing objectives, it can be called in review at any point by members of the public or responsible authorities.
Thank you, Catherine. I'll reiterate that comment that a licence can be reviewed, revoked, or changed. So if there is a problem and the licensing objectives have not been adhered to, if people have the right to call it in, and so do the responsible authorities, environmental health, the police, etc. So that's the one thing about licensing that's different than planning, etc. We can call it back and have a look at it if it's granted. Yeah, we have a question from councillor.
It's to the applicant. You said about the weapons being held if anyone's carrying a knife. So what would you do with these weapons? Where would they be stored and how would you dispose of them? So what's the process? What's your policy behind if anyone's carrying a knife, or bear in mind anything worse? But yeah, I just have questions about what are you doing with any weapons that are found on your patrons?
The police would obviously be called immediately. However, we've got a drug safe for the drugs and the weapons. And historically, the drugs get held and we either drop them off at the police station or the police come and pick them up, or they're disposed of under the CCTV into fresh air, depending on what it is. But yeah, with the weapons, which is obviously not a new thing, but people are carrying more and more, the police would be called immediately on finding a weapon.
Just on that note, every customer who enters a pub, obviously a metal detector will be used to search for weapons, so there is extensive searching that will be conducted to each and every person prior to entering the establishment. Yeah. Okay, just make that note, thank you.
So if you suspect a Class A drugs being used, you would call the police?
If drugs are being used, would we call the police? The police presence is in Wimborne, so ordinarily you don't. If you catch someone taking drugs, you don't ordinarily call the police. If you catch somebody dealing drugs, selling drugs, you would call the police. But if somebody is found to be using drugs, they are seized, they are held in a drug safe, and they are handed into the police station.
Yeah, I have a bit of a problem with that. I would have thought Class A drugs need to be reported to the police if you suspect they're being used on your premises or being brought onto your premises. So I would expect if you're suspicious of that police would be called. A little bit disappointed in that because drugs is a big problem in our country at the moment.
Sorry, so disappointed by what, sorry? Our answer?
Yeah, your answer to that question about Class A drugs was you'd keep them in the safe. What you actually need to do is reporting the person that's brought the Class A drugs, banning them from premises, obviously, to the police.
Yeah, it would be reported. So we've got like an incident book, so it would be logged, and then it would be taken to the police station with contact details if we were able to get them. But ordinarily, and I pretty much feel it's the same with all venues, that is how we are advised to deal with it via the police. Not into just like our safe, it's a designated drug safe. And it's all obviously documented.
Thank you very much. That's clarified that. Thank you. Councillor Weller.
Thank you very much. One of the representatives was suggesting that when they've called late at night, previously, they've called late at night to complain of the noise. They haven't been able to get through. They haven't been able to get an answer. So they haven't been able to do anything about it at the time of the problem. Would you have any objections to a designated number for the duty manager to be available to the immediate neighbours so that they could phone and say, suddenly everything's got terribly noisy, could you check the noise limiter, or any of those things? A designated number for your immediate neighbours to have?
I would be happy to supply a number for myself or Craig.
Thank you very much. Right, now I'm going to ask Lara how we covered everything. I will go on to the summing up about the bill, etc.
Yes, Chairman, I think you probably just need to clarify that everybody's said everything they want to before you close.
Thank you. With that voice, has everybody said what they need to say? Just giving everybody a chance. Right, fine. This part of the public meeting will now conclude. I'm just going to remind everybody that the subcommittee will go and meet in a separate place with a legal representative, Democratic Services as well, and a Democratic Services officer. And the decision of the licensing subcommittee shall be communicated to the parties and the licence officers made available on the council's website as soon as practicable within the prescribed limit of 5 working days. Just to inform everybody that a right of appeal to the magistrates court, if they are not happy with the decision, there must be within 21 days of the notice. Is everybody clear with that? So you have to wait until it's Weymouth magistrates. It might be actually Poole magistrates course in this case.
Just to state, notices we will write to the people, we'll email out to everybody that's made a representation and the applicants the decision notice. So once they've received it on the email, that will be when the 21 days starts.
Yeah, thank you very much, Catherine. So I now need a proposer and a seconder to go into closed session.
Propose that we go to closed session, Chairman.
And I would second that, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, everybody that's come today and taken the time out to go through this license application. Really appreciate it. We will now go into closed session. Nothing else, Laura? Fine. Okay, thank you, everybody.